evening, everyone. Happy Easter. And welcome to my first full, true episode of Sunday Live with Caleb, broadcasting 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock Pacific time every week, every Sunday. I'll be presenting some of my work, and I will have guests on the show who I've worked with on projects and collaborated with, and who I admire and who have been a big influence on me. And today I'm very thankful to have Chris Wirsig online. Chris and I have worked out a number of projects together, and we'll be discussing those projects. Our backing track during opening credits today is The Holy Mountain by myself. This is an instrumental version of a song that's on my solo album, Brilliant Dreams, available on all streaming and download platforms. I'm trying to remember on this specific one. I think Kedar Roy might have done the bass overdubs and stuff by me, as well as perhaps Eric Jorgensen, because I know he played on a couple tracks on that album. But there was many beers involved, so hard to say exactly who played on that track. So I want to welcome you all and for supporting Sunday Live. Again, this was a creative idea that had been floating around for a little while. And after I did a performance for Balanced Breakfast for their festival, for the quarantine festival, a couple of friends contacted me and said, hey, could you do that every week? And so I agreed to, and I said, yeah, that'd be great. I was thinking of doing that exact thing. So perfect. Just got to put the technology together. And I worked with my buddy Tim Lahine about 2 weeks to figure out the software, the hardware, and it's still under development, but I think we're good enough to start getting rolling. And so here's the show. And again, thank you for being here on an Easter day and joining in. And the setup is interesting because it kind of requires me to have 4 arms right now. But I'm making my way through automating the screens and getting everything together for you for the future shows. I'm going to check in on the comments. You can comment either here in Facebook in the ongoing comments. I'm monitoring those on my iPhone. And I'm also monitoring on YouTube in the stream there. Okay, cool. I got a comment that said, Ska meets Depeche Mode married with David Bowie. I like that. David Bowie is a huge influence on me. I love the fact that every one of his albums was completely different. Every one of his albums challenged you in a different way. His most commercial album, Let's Dance, challenged all the Bowie fans in a way because suddenly they were dealing with a whole different style that they hadn't heard before. So thank you for that comment. I appreciate that. As I said, today's guest is Chris Wirsig, and Chris is a composer and a keyboardist, and must be like at least 5 years ago now. I joined West Coast Songwriters, which is a compositional group contest that happens monthly all around the San Francisco Bay Area, and different chapters have people come up and win the contest for best performance, best song. And I was living in Marin at the time, and I was doing a lot of my audio terrorist stuff and wearing black. And as folks know, a lot of my songs deal with heavier subjects and lighter. And so I was a little unsure about joining West Coast Songwriters, and the head of the San Rafael chapter said to me, hey, come on down, do your thing. We accept everybody. I said, well, I can't sing and play the guitar at the same time. He said, no, bring backing tracks. It's all good now. And did so. And I played a couple times and I met a lot of people. And most were fairly, folk song, guitar playing singer-songwriters. And then one night I was there, I looked up on stage, and there was a guy with a shaved head wearing black. I thought, my people have arrived. So so I introduced myself to Chris, and we started talking about projects and whatnot. And he was working on a covers album called Ghosts of the West Coast. And Ghosts of the West Coast had not only his band No Carrier's main singer, but he was also having guest vocalists come. And something similar to what's happening today, you can hear my voice kind of raspy, happened on the day I was going to record for Chris, because he asked me to sing on a cover of Don Henley's Boys of Summer. And I had congestion and allergies, and I'm flushing my ears, and I tear my eardrum. It was incredibly, shook me to my core. Like, can I do this? I thought I should just call and cancel. But I'm like, I can't let him down. I'm going to make this happen. So over I went, and many takes and later, Chris said, we're done. And he went away and edited. And I thought, I've disappointed this guy. I haven't fully delivered. And I was surprised to get a message back from Chris saying, hey, the song's done. It's really good. And I want it to be the single for the album. Wow. That just blew my socks off. And then after that, he said, yeah, I really like this single. And since it's the single, we're going to do a music video. And so we shot a music video. And it just proved to me that no matter what you think internally about your voice, your skills in any way, don't listen to them. Just go out and do and collaborate and engage with people. And stuff will happen. And stuff will come back from that giving. Just give lovingly, and the universe will take care of the rest. Now, I have Chris online here, so I'm going to bring him on. Get the technology here. All right. Oh.
Do you hear me?
Yes, but PowerPoint wants to take over the world. Doesn't want me to switch.
Well,
there you go.
that's
So how are you doing, Chris?
I'm good, thank you.
Now, I was talking about how we met in Marin in San Rafael, and since then, since Boys of Summer, you've moved down to LA,
I did.
and you've been working a lot in the film scoring department down there, and several films and some TV shows.
Yeah, I did mainly what's called production music. So through music libraries, if anyone out there knows what that is, like music that is used in reality shows, news programs like CNN, use that for their stuff. Yeah.
Now, my mentor, Dan Wyman, in college said that 50% of everything you watch is really the sound, the music. And yet, the composer's job is to be so no one actually hears the music. They just feel it.
Yeah, that's right. You shouldn't overwhelm. It doesn't matter if it's a news program or if it's a TV show, a reality show, or if it's a movie. You shouldn't overwhelm the scene with the music. It should support it, the emotions or whatever's happening on screen, but it shouldn't be on its own in the movie. I like it when it stands on its own, when you just listen to the music and it's still interesting and not too boring. But a lot of scenes need very minimal music, so that's always a challenge.
So not everything is Star Wars.
No, as much as I love John Williams stuff, and Star Wars has a lot of other movies like that, they have lots of scenes where the music can take over because there's not dialogue or something happening. But as I did a lot for MTV's The Challenge in the last few seasons, there there's always something happening, dialogue or some. They're competing in all these weird sports things. So it can't be overwhelming, and it's always, especially in reality programs, it's very low in volume anyway. It's just there to add a little tension,
Set the mood, and kind of give a narrative. My wife loves listening to these sort of like murder mystery shows and action shows, and I'll be joking about the music, like, nah, that guy didn't do the murder because the music's wrong. So I see this. It must be an interesting relationship with the visuals of when to tell a message and when not to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's that especially with like these true crime shows and that stuff, or if you have a thriller that builds and the audience doesn't yet know who the murderer is, then you can give hints, but you shouldn't give it away yet because that would be boring. Stuff like that. Yeah, that always happens. But on the other hand, with the TV shows, when writing for music libraries, you don't write to picture itself, so you don't know what it ends up in. So that's the another important person in that industry, the editor. And the editors with the TV shows, especially the ones at MTV, are usually pretty good to use music to the full effect.
Got it. Now, your band No Carrier, you did for many years, and then you started doing collaborations. Ghost West Coast was the first one. Then you did several other collaborations. I see Lisa Marie has joined.
Hey, Lisa.
I know that
Hey, Jeff.
And Jeff from Iran. Someone named Marianne seems to be stalking you.
Yeah, don't know who that is.
A number of other folks. Well, the good news is they're not saying they can't hear you, so that's good. Levels. So the levels are good. But so you did the collaborations. And then you moved to LA and you started focusing on the soundtrack stuff, but you're still doing collaborations in No Carrier as well, yeah?
I still do that, yeah. And actually, yes, I know how you felt when you joined West Coast Songwriters and then all of a sudden decided to go there because I was the same. It's like, I don't play guitar. I don't stand on stage with an acoustic guitar and play my song. So that was a good thing we met there.
Well, you do play keyboard though. I saw
Yes,
you play keyboard live.
Yeah, but still, I'm utterly nervous, and I'm not a great performer because I'm too lazy to practice all the time. So I can't just sit down. I can noodle around on the keyboard and improvise a little bit, but for performances of our songs, I really have to practice.
Now, one at the pilot last week, one of the guests asked me to talk more about the creative process. And I'm always fascinated by what the kind of popular myths around the creative process of the poet in the coffee shop with his pencil and paper, or the rock artist, with his guitar, I don't know, somehow floating in about the water, not getting electrocuted, and coming up with his brilliant idea. And you and I approach this whole thing very differently because we are more a combination of composer, songwriter, producer, and because we produce with technology, we also have to be a technologist. So yeah. You said you're too lazy to practice keyboard, and I hit myself up with that script all the time. But then I go, well, what was I doing all week? I was trying to get the router to work. I was trying to get the laptop to work. I was trying to, so we work so much in the producer and engineer, the technical, right? Engineers used to handle all that. And then the producer handled the craft. And then the composer wrote the thing and the musician performed the thing. And we sort of expect ourselves to be able to do all of those things now. what used to be a whole team.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, it was always, I was always really interested in the whole process from writing a song to recording to mixing, mastering, the whole thing. So that's why I studied audio engineering later on. And after I played piano and saxophone and had lessons on end forever. So for me, it was always the studio is an instrument in itself. I think Andy Partridge from the band Ecstasy once said that, and that it's for him it's a kid in a candy store thing when they go into the studio and have all
Mm.
these uh, outboard gear. I mean, nowadays it's all in a computer, and not. I don't have real outboard gear here. I have a few synths left. That's it. But it's still it's kind of the same. It's just all in one computer now.
And you and I are, I used to haul around 2 racks of gear to shows and whatnot. And over my career, that went down eventually to an iPod I could just take on stage. If we were doing a quick festival where you don't have much setup time, just bounce everything to the iPod, hit the go on the iPod, and then have the live instruments and the vocals play on top of that. And the secret for a long, long time was bands like Pet Shop Boys, Nine Inch Nails had tons and tons of backing tracks playing, and Depeche Mode, and people really didn't think about it as like those backing tracks seemed somehow more valid because they were on reel to reel. But when I walked up with an iPod and put it on the stage, suddenly people were like unsure, how authentic I was. But that seems to
Hmm.
really have changed now. I go to live shows and I see laptops on stage as an instrument accepted.
Yeah, it definitely has changed. I think people now know that there's still some live playing. I mean, like a keyboard player, you only have 2 hands and maybe you have a few foot pedals or whatever, but you can play anything. For me, one of my all-time favorite bands in the electronic and the instrumental field is Tangerine Dream, and they always had tons of equipment on stage. Nowadays, they also work more with software, but they still have a few keyboards there, and they still play a lot live. But it's 3 people on stage, and they can't play all the tracks there. So they start and stop sequences and loops and stuff. And I think people realize now that that's a form of playing live as well, and it's a live manipulation of sounds and loops.
And if you think about it, there are huge arena tours of DJs where they're just playing a laptop in a light show. And if that's acceptable, having a laptop plus additional people actually playing live on top of that seems perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, and I think the whole that DJs got more and more popular over the last 20 years, and now play these huge arenas. I think that got into people to accept that it's just a different form of performing a song live, and electronic music got more and more into the mainstream from the since the 90s. So I think that's a good thing.
An artist that I've followed all of my life, um, he just got his first hit in 20 years. It was top of the charts and whatnot. And he actually got removed from the Billboard charts because they said he wasn't electronic. They said we can't allow you to have this, be number one in the electronic chart because you're not. We don't consider you electronic anymore, because electronic has become the standard across everything. Country is electronic,
Right.
etc.
Yeah,
So
and also with everything you have in the studio nowadays, and with all these great plugins we now have, it's like when I'm using orchestra, it's all in the box. Or I have some good guitar samples, great drums, and it's always great to work with live musicians as well. But you can't always afford that, and especially in the TV work, you don't have the budgets usually. I mean, even big movies sometimes don't have the budget for big orchestras anymore. So it's nice to have all that, and everything together then makes a good song or a good instrumental track.
how do you think the all of us being locked in our homes with this pandemic is affecting the TV movie soundtrack industry?
I'm not sure yet. People definitely watch more, and there's this meme on Facebook going around saying if you now listen more to Spotify and watch on Netflix or whatever platform you're choosing, um, don't ever say again that we don't need arts and artists, because that's the whole joint effort of different art forms coming together to entertain you at this point. I think it probably might change a bit even more towards streaming. AMC theaters are now probably on the brink of going bankrupt and stuff like that. So I don't know. It, but I think for the industry, it might not be too bad at the moment. For a lot of people in the industry, it's bad because they're out of work.
Yeah, it definitely. There seems to be a lag time. Like you were talking the other day about how one show had shot a year's worth of episodes. So
Mm-hmm.
someone working on that show will be continuing to work, but if no projects are being launched, anybody who's finishing working on a project can't find the next gig.
That's right. Yeah, and that's the bigger problem at the moment, I think, or what the problem will run into in the industry as well. But there
It,
also might be, hopefully, an upward trend with more productions coming on when all this is over, because now they're like script writers are writing at home, and others are just preparing projects. Some directors I know they're just working on several projects pre-production right now, doing casting via Zoom sessions.
I saw that happen pretty darn quickly. Um, my show was on a Wednesday, my last live show, and Thursday everything was canceled, and so my bigger show in West Seattle got axed, and everybody was scrambling trying to figure out what to do. And I'd say within 3 days, everybody had their Patreon tip jar available, and we were doing home shows. People adjusted to doing that very, very quickly, especially the singer songwriters. I think the punk bands and the metal bands who are very live orientated are having a more difficult time figuring out how to approach it. But for solo singer songwriters, electronic musicians, composers, it switched pretty fast. And I thought it was going to take about 2 weeks for the professional industry to really kick in. Maybe all the locals would have a couple weeks where no one could find any other professional material. So all of us in the semi-professional space could, sort of swamp it, and maybe we'd get 2 weeks on that. It was about more like 5-7 days tops, and you started hearing big acts announcing online tours and deals, say with a Netflix concert and this sort of thing. And I just think the technology has become far more common, and much like having laptops on stage, we've just transitioned into another era of the technology, and it's sort of like I just didn't notice. And young kids that grew up with these platforms being much more stable than they used to be. Let's think back at all those different formats that we piled up in the corner of reel-to-reel, cassette, ADAT, DAT, all the tape, and going to hard drives, then going to USB sticks. If you grew up with USB sticks and a reliable laptop that cost you maybe $500, for you going online, it's just like no-brainer shift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I could see the movie industry shifting faster than one might have thought into how do we do remote production.
I guess, yeah, and a lot of jobs in that industry can be done remotely. The video editor, the music editor, the composer can be in his own studio. Like, actually, I think the shooting process is the one where a lot of people need to come together, and then it's several groups, or like special effects, stuff like that, CGI. That's that's also in bigger movies, big groups of people. It's sometimes 50, 60, 100 people working on CGI alone, but it's still, they can do that probably collaboratively from home as well, or from smaller offices.
Um, Speaking of the film stuff, I know that we're on Zoom on this call, and Zoom will give us only like 3 more minutes before it's going to cut you off, is what I hear. We'll stretch it out. And what I would like to do is just give an introduction before you go, and we will play. I've got the video that you want to just play a sample of. And so, give an introduction. I'll start playing. How long do you want me to show? This is a world premiere, so we're keeping it under wraps. You're going to get to see a little piece of something nobody else has seen.
It is, yeah. It'll come out late April, so that's definitely everyone here. You're the first people to see that video and hear that song.
Cool. All right.
Oh yeah, to the first chorus or so.
Doesn't he hear coughing thoughts, foot on the ground, connecting the dots, a blow in the back, your mind seems to go another notch chord, so nothing shows.
All right. Chris, are you still out there?
I think I'm still here.
All right. Let me alt tab. So tell me a bit about this project.
That kind of came because I wanted to write something electronic, but Americana influenced a little bit, like a swampy, deserty kind of electro rock stuff. And that was already probably 3 years ago. And I collaborated with a singer here in LA, Bobby Halvorsen. He's an awesome performer. He actually sings everything from death metal to country. So, and yeah, I had him in the studio. We recorded that, and now finally it's been shifted into a real project band-like thing called the Dust Ride, and I'm definitely planning that this whole entity will record a little more. Maybe we'll add some more real guitar. There will be 2 more singles with that song and 2 other very different versions. One a more traditional rock thing, and the other a more electronic, dark vibey, dark wave thing, but still with that swagger feel to it.
Got it. And you mentioned that the time that you recorded it to now, and this is something I talk to folks about with production and a lot of electronic music. It takes about 3 years. You start a project, a single, record it, and it typically, by time I find things get out, I will have been kicking that thing around for several years before it gets released. Do you find that's the same?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes even longer. I had that, especially with No Carrier. With now, as I'm producing more and more, and especially with the TV library stuff that has very quick turnarounds quite often. I got into the groove a little more, and especially with instrumental music, I'm definitely a bit quicker now, um, because these things sometimes you only have 1 or 2 days to write several cues, which are usually 1 to 1.5 to 2 minutes long each. But then with songs, especially when vocals are in there and the more vocal tracks you have, because there's background vocals or whatnot, that can take a while. In vocal editing, I have a love-hate relationship with that. I like it, but it's also a lot of work, getting the best from all these different takes, and then combining that, making it cohesive, and everything that goes with vocal editing. Everyone who ever did that knows how that is. So, and that definitely takes a while. Maybe not always 2 to 3 years, but it's at least a few months, where you're working on and off with it. I have another project that I just produced called Echo Kill. It's cover versions in industrial electronic styles. And there's a first single coming out in May, and I worked on that quite a while.
Yeah, some songs, every once in a while, a song will catch me off guard and just suddenly come into my head or in the studio and be really easy to.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of other ones, you get bits and pieces, and you kind of, it's like collecting seashells on a shelf. And eventually you start getting a tableau, you start getting a story or of these pieces and how they fit together.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my jokes that I will tell people when they ask me about my creative process is I say I start with the album cover.
Yeah.
So you just yeah.
That's not too bad usually. Then you have a visual idea about it.
Yeah, you've got all these pieces, little beats and rhythms and stuff you've been playing with, and then you have a concept, like a visual concept in your mind, and you see how certain pieces on the shelf fit together, and then you start constructing it from there.
That's right.
I think my fastest turnaround, I did one song in a day, and for many years it turned out to be the top downloading song for that band.
Wow.
Which kind of kind of bugs you that you spend like 6 months on some song, you really craft it, it's really good, it's mixed perfectly, it's mastered perfectly, and no one's playing it. Mm-hmm. And everybody runs to this thing that you quickly slap together. It doesn't even have good sound quality, but it connects.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that's what I often think. Just get it finished somehow. And I once heard that saying that a song is never finished. You just stop at a certain point and then put it out there.
I totally relate to that. And I know several producers I've worked with. Tyrone Stanford, I think he's online watching today, and hopefully we'll get him on a later episode. And Tim Lehan, who's been producing me the last couple of years. I know I've driven them crazy sometimes with, can we tweak that a little bit more and a little more hi-hat here? And they're like, just ship it. No one else is going to notice. And for the folks that know my work, know that Tim's been working on acoustic songs with me. And we did an acoustic version of Wizard on the Stairs. And I just asked Chris to listen to it because I was literally listening to these masters going, well, that one makes the guitar a little brighter. That one makes it a little more, warm and friendly, or that one's more vocal centric. And we're not talking about big changes in mix. We're just like slight volume differences between the guitar and the vocals, and that's it. And at a certain point you have to say, okay, enough's enough. Let's ship this.
It is, yeah. And it's often hard to decide, right? It's like that song is your baby and you want it to sound the best, and sometimes you can get hung up on these little details.
True. Yeah. I certainly have been guilty of that. I'd like to bring up a song that I performed live last year with Jeff, and I think Osha might be online watching. And You might recognize this song.
Your heroin don't work no more. The needle's all broken. Too much is left unspoken. Drowned forevermore. Your wounds can't bleed no more. The tears are all flown. All the sorrows that you know are now accounted for. So you go into the light of a new day. Your heroin don't work no more. All veins are closed too tight. No way to get it right. Gone forevermore. Your heart can't race no more. The pressure was too high for too long a time. So you open up that door and you go from the night and you pray that this is the break you've been waiting for. The time of your life, you need to go down the golden road you've been meaning to take to the land of the living where nothing is fake anymore. So you go into the light of a new day, and you go from the night, and you pray that this is the day you've been waiting for. The time of your life, you need to go down the golden road you've been meaning to take to the land of the living where nothing is fake anymore. And this is the break you've been waiting for. The time of your life, you need to go down the golden road you've been meaning to take to the land of the living where nothing is fake anymore.
Thank you.
So, Chris, you still out there?
I am still here. Can't get rid of
Cool.
me.
So, you recognize that song?
Somehow, yeah. Don't know from where.
So this single kind of got caught up in my move to Seattle. It was supposed to be out in the fall, and Jeff had played bass on that. I think that summer. I don't know. It all becomes a blur after a while, and I think it took a couple years. I had a heavy metal version that I started with one friend,
Right.
and then I did a piano version that reminded me of Alan Parsons' Project. So it went from like Metallica to Alan Parsons' Project, and then I worked with Raven Alexander, who had done several remixes for me over the years, and presented to him, and he came up with this electronic arrangement of the song, and so then that had issues in length and edit, and I wanted it mixed differently, so then I tore it apart and re-chopped it in a new arrangement, and then had my current producer Tim go in and change, and then he went in and replaced a lot of the instruments with ones that were crisper, and I wanted this one little you'll hear in it this ding ding ding, kind of like tubular bells that I really liked. So we brought that out in the mix, and then it's done. So it's just been literally sitting there in my release pile, and everybody said, well, go build more fan base once you can move up to Seattle so you could release it to them. So I held off, but I think at this point, I just like ship it. I have a lyric video. I've got a live video, so that will be coming soon. And
Cool.
So having said all that, you wrote that song.
I did. I actually think that's one of the better songs I wrote so far.
It's really awesome. It was the album after the one that had Boys of Summer, yeah?
Yeah, it's called, it's on Broken Rainbow with the nice subtitle Ballads for an Apocalyptic World.
And you had moved to LA, and you had met a new male vocalist. I'm not jealous. Who has a great voice, just a really robust voice. Is he the same one with the Dust?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the same guy.
It sounded the same. I mean, he's got this great, gnarly, rough voice, and it's a really great sound.
Yeah, he can do that gnarly thing very well. Yeah, he can do a lot, but that's why I wanted him here, and I used his voice on these two tracks.
And folks, if you get the chance, go up to YouTube and look up No Carrier and look up the original version of Your Heroine. It's a cool video that they shot out in the desert, and again, I love that version. And but I also just love the track so much. At the time, I was working in corporate America and had an abusive boss, and I just started singing that song. I converted it, your version I converted first into karaoke and started singing it. And after a while, I realized it was a regular part of my set, so I should do a version. That's kind of what got the ball rolling over the years. And by the time I decided to cut the purse string, that was definitely my anthem. I had my version done, and I was singing it live, and it just captured, for me, the story really is about being authentic and having an addiction to things that are not authentic or not the healthiest for you, not just a drug or something, but really something that has become not just an addiction, maybe a habit or something you think you can't do without. And you realize one day that being authentic and being on your life's path is more important.
Yeah, that definitely is. That the nice thing with this song is that it can work on different levels, and it can mean a lot of different things for different people. That's why I somehow think it's one of the best I've wrote so far, because usually I'm either very vague or it's very direct, but this really can work in different ways for different people, and you definitely made it your own in your version.
Cool. Thank you. Let's see if there's any questions. Does anybody have questions for Chris? Just type it into the chat comments and we can throw that out there. Checking in on who's watching. Lisa Marie says Broken Rainbow is a great album. So you got a pitch there.
Thank you, Lisa.
Jeff from Marin said great collaborative effort. I'm assuming you mean my cover of Chris's song. Hopefully. And, hopefully you'll check out the single when it comes out. Let's see. And Kaylee says, she just gives a thumbs up to our statement about artist appreciation during this time where art is not only an entertainment, but a social glue for people right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There always will be people who are like, oh no, we don't need the artists. They're just getting taxpayers' money or whatever. I saw posts from German friends who reposted stuff like that, not because they believe in it, but they were like, I can't believe there are people out there like that. Yeah. If someone doesn't want to listen to music, that's fine.
I hear you there. I'm getting a message saying to check my YouTube chat that there's people over there, and I kind of I set that up, but I realized it might play the video what we're broadcasting back on ourselves. So let me try to check in over there and see what folks are saying. You
can build a nice feedback loop there.
Yes. Okay, good. I muted that. It's up now. Hey, everybody over on YouTube. Sorry I've been ignoring you. Still getting used to this setup and trying to have 4 arms. Let me say hi to everyone. We got Corey and Frank, who are a couple electronic artist buddies of mine. Frank is, I believe, next week. We'll be on, and perhaps sometime in the future I'll get Corey on. I know we talked about some internet bandwidth stuff, so we'll have to see on that. But Frank will be here next week talking about modular synthesis. So for folks that don't know what the heck that means, back in the 70s there were these big wall-to-wall synthesizers where people were plugging in cables and whatnot. And then in the 80s, they were able to shrink all that down into little chips and have presets on them. And everybody just said, oh, goodness, I can just have this little object that everything's in there. And I can just scroll through, some sounds. This is a cool piano, and I'm going to play this sound. And over the years, that evolved where a keyboard, you would buy it, and it have 500, 1,000 presets. And you're spending all your time just scrolling through these presets going, oh, that's a good bong. Oh, that's an even better bong. I like that bing. And then you realize you haven't composed any songs because you're so busy scrolling through trying to find your favorite presets on the box. And then the laptop thing that we talked about earlier came in to where everything's in the box. It's on this screen, and you're using a mouse to adjust things. And I think there's been a real resurgence in interest in doing things outside the box. Doing things in the box has become so normal and so common, that's considered the starting point or basic, that people are buying vinyl records because they can hold them. They can place them and feel the needle. And as some of you might remember, you can also watch the needle build up dust and go skating across your favorite record, destroying it. But it's a very tangible experience. And so people have started getting that way about synthesizers as well. And Frank is one of the people at the forefront of that, of actually buying boxes and plugging wires in again and doing these shows sometimes where there's no way to save your work. You have to draw a map, or maybe that's the only time that performance and that sound will ever occur is at that show. He's been doing some great collaborative pieces with performance artists, doing very sexy suspension. I don't know if you see people do like rope suspension and fabric and all this stuff, and doing electronic composition to it. So it's a very, very hands-on, present experience where working on the laptop is sometimes like going into your own little world, which, unless the dog runs in and says hi to you, Chris, we might not know that there's anything outside your studio. Mm-hmm. So be watching for that. That's a plug for Frank coming up next week. We are coming up the top of the hour here. I'm just going to double check a couple things. I got it right. Frank liked the summary, so. Let me know how the screens are working. Oh. Okay. So again, Chris uses mainly a computer in a home studio. He does composition for TV, for film. He also has a long-standing band called No Carrier that I was honored to get to be a guest singer on an album, and I've covered a No Carrier song. And he is at another project that has kind of born out of that. Was that Dust Riders?
The Dust Ride.
The Dust Ride.
And ride because it should be something special with a Y, not an I.
Got it. So that's Chris's background, and Chris, thank you for coming into my life. You gave me a great opportunity to have the Boys of Summer video made, and I hadn't acted in a long time, and it opened up a whole new realm of collaboration. Until then, I was really hyper focused on releasing my Caleb stuff and my Auditary stuff, and that one experience got me to start collaborating with more and more people. Led me to Balanced Breakfast and Rock Lotto, and co-writing songs with Tim and other people. And then that looped all the way back around to me going down to LA last October, or September, and co-writing 2 tracks with you that hopefully in the coming year we'll get time to produce and finalize. Amongst
you're calling my bad conscience now.
Well, it's not just you. I rewrote all the lyrics to both of them, so I have to throw out the takes that I did in San Jose with Tim. Mm-hmm. At least parts of this. I think some of the choruses are fine, and some of the harmonies are fine. But now that I've settled here into the new studio in Seattle, I will be working on those new vocals for that.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that.
And I'm doing my little control panel here. And that should have switched cameras. Hey, they were switching cameras. Let me get you back. And then I think I will leave with showing Boys of Summer again. There may be some people who haven't seen it. For those who have seen it, I kept it to the end of the show, so we wouldn't be repeating Boys of Summer as well this week. But it is a really cool video that was shot, 3 years ago?
No, probably already 4 or 5 years ago. I think it's
that went fast.
Been a while.
And the other Jeff, I think he got a cameo in it. At least he's at least the silhouette in the entryway.
There are
there
are many people from the San Francisco Balanced Breakfast in there, in the house party scene at the end, and in the cafe restaurant scene.
Oh, that's right. We also shot the cafe in San Francisco. The house scene was
Pianofied,
in Marin, and the street stuff was another spot in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and play that video for folks who have not seen it. It was unavailable for a few years in the United States. It was available elsewhere due to some legal dispute between the gods, right? YouTube and Universal Music are gods. And, I followed up on it a couple times and was like, "Hey, can we make this video get shown?" And I'd hear back, "Oh, well, there's this legal conflict," and then I went to Vivo and talked to them. I said, "Hey, I see that there are other people that cover this song that are played. How are they getting played and not us?" And the response was, "We don't allow cover tunes." And still to this day, they're allowing that cover tune. Why? Because that artist is on Sony Records.
Yeah.
We're not. It's part of the reality.
It's weird, but usually all the big labels now have deals with YouTube and Facebook and all these platforms. So you can't just upload your cover version and they get their royalties that are due to them, and you don't have to get a license from them for that. So it should be an automated process, but somehow with this song it didn't work when Universal dropped out of that deal and then got back in or whatever, and it took a while.
But it's back now. Before we do our final video of Boys of Summer, I do want to put up that's my contact page. I can't go back. Anyhow, so if you want to contact me and find out about the Your Heroine single and stay on top of when that's coming out, you can follow me on Facebook at Audie Terrace Music for that track. And I don't have 100 subscribers for my Caleb page yet, so I cannot put a nice custom name. They give you this gibberish thing until you get 100 users. So if you look me up, to find me on YouTube, you have to type in Caleb and Wizard on the Stairs. That will bring me up. And subscribe to that page. I'd be greatly appreciated, because once I get my first 100, I will be able to add a custom name. And go over to Chris's sites as well, because some of them have custom names. I know some of them don't. So please subscribe to people's accounts, especially if you see they're under 100, because YouTube will make it very difficult for us to get our music out until that first 100 is reached.
Yeah.
All right, so without further ado, I'm going to play Boys of Summer.
Nobody on the road, nobody on the beach. I feel it in the air, the summer's out of reach. Empty lake, empty streets, the sun goes down alone. I'm driving by your house, though I know you're not home. I can see you, your brown skin shining in the sun. You got your hair combed back, sunglasses on, baby. I can tell you my love for you will still be strong after the boys of summer have those nights, I wonder if it was a dream. Remember how you made me crazy? Remember how I made you scream? Now I don't understand what happened to our love. But babe, gonna get you back, gonna show you what I'm made of.
Well, that's a unfortunate thing I just found about the technology, apparently.
I can see you, your brown skin shining in the sun. I see you walking real slow, smiling at everyone. I can tell you my love for you will still be strong after the today, saw a deadhead sticking on a Cadillac. Little voice inside my head said, don't look back, you can never look back. I thought I knew what love was, what did I know? Those days are gone forever, I should let them go, but I can see you, your brown skin shining in the sun. You got your top pulled down, that radio on. I can tell you my love for you will still be strong after the boys of summer have gone. I can see you, your brown skin shining in the sun. You got your hair slicked back, those wave fingers on. I can tell you my love for you will still be strong after the boys of summer have gone. They've gone after he's gone.
That was Boys of Summer, cover of Don Henley, a song done by Chris Wirsig here of No Carrier. I'm going to see if I can trigger you to come back full screen for one last little chat on that.
If not, I just stay small.
Let's see, and this is exit minimized video. You know, it actually did that automatically. I don't even know how it did that, but that was cool to have you up there. So why did you pick that particular song to do?
It's one of my favorite songs, all in all, and of Don Henley. And I realized that it has this dark quality to it that people usually don't see because it's a summer song. It's Voice of Summer. And for me, when I thought about it, I realized it might be that this guy is stalking his ex-girlfriend or whatever. That it becomes very dark all of a sudden. And it's, I think Don Henley once said that it's more about lost childhood, youth, lost innocence, stuff like that. Which especially is in that line with the deadhead sticker on a Cadillac. And yeah, and I thought I'll make it, bring out the darkness.
Well, you certainly did. An interesting thing happened at my show at Tim's Tavern. The keyboardist I was working with, Charlie Rice, he loves the original too. And he said, you don't have the riff. Everybody knows the riff. I'm going to play the riff. So whenever I get around to editing that video, I don't know what the audio is like, but I'd love to play that for you, that he added the riff back in there, and the audience immediately recognized that riff. And it fit. It actually worked. I thought it wouldn't work with how you changed the song, and then I changed the phrasing on the song and the melody a bit and whatnot. So I wasn't sure it could be reinserted, and he did it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I would love to hear that. Yeah, it's I somehow with cover versions, also with the Bad Moon Rising cover version I did with Lisa, where I really kind of transposed it to more minor. It's I like to do that people don't realize what the song is at once, and then all of a sudden they're this song, and then they probably see the inherent darkness in the song that I see right away.
You know, I last week I called this the after party. You know, it's officially till 6 o'clock, but I had a couple of requests. Someone said they would like to hear one of more rock Audio Terrace songs versus the folk stuff that I've been doing, and so I played a video after that. And I think playing the Bad Moon Rising would be very cool right now, because little do some people know, when I talk about myself being a little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll, that's very much true. I grew up in a house where Neil Diamond was the bridge between rock and and country, but I certainly listened to a lot of Beatles and rock stuff, and my mom had me growing up on Hank Williams Jr. and Hank Williams and much more honky tonk stuff. So I do have my heart in both places, and Creedence Clearwater Revival was one of those bands that again bridged the rock with the country, and so I do know Bad Moon Rising very well, and so I say.
And it's, the funny thing is, it's a very simple song. It's I don't know, 3 chords or so, and I did something that you shouldn't necessarily do with songs if you're trying to transpose them to minor. I mean, usually you transpose them, if you want them in minor, you transpose them to a minor key and you do the full song. What I did was the cheap thing, and I only took all the major chords in there and made them minor. And usually that doesn't work because it would sound very weird. But in this song it worked, and it gave it this ominous, dark atmosphere that it has.
Cool, and I've got it queued up here. So for folks, I saw Lisa Marie was online at some point, and she's the vocalist on this track, yeah?
Yeah, Lisa sang that track, and she's also performing in the video. This witch dance, rain dance thing.
Cool. All right, so let's launch into that.
I see a bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way. I see earthquakes and lightning. I see bad times today. Don't come round tonight. Well, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. Hurricanes blowing. I know the end is coming soon, and I fear rivers overflowing. I hear the voice of rage and ruin. Don't come round tonight. Well, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. Hope we got your things together. Hope you are quite prepared to die. Looks like we're in for nasty weather. One eye is taken for an eye. Don't come round tonight. Well, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon
Awesome track. The hairs are staying up on my arms.
That's good. That's how it should be.
And again, this is an example of a song that people will sing in karaoke bars while they're driving their cars in the summer, and the lyrics are dark.
They are, yeah.
This is
People don't listen to the lyrics that much, I think, and if it has a kind of happy vibe to it as well, or more positive vibe, then it's fine for them. But I always hear the dark vibe in it.
One other thing people might not know about me and my connection with this stuff is while the honky tonk stuff comes from my mom, my dad loves spaghetti western, all the Clint Eastwood spaghetti western stuff. So he loves western movies. So growing up as a kid, I would see these western movies that, again, had these very dark elements, and yet somehow were presented in a kind of bold adventure at the same time. And you've really kind of stripped that away and looked at the emotional underpinning of that.
Yeah, and the scores in these westerns, like Ennio Morricone stuff and all that it's often playful, but also quite dark.
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought. I knew that he had scored that those films, and
Yeah.
so the Good, Bad, and Ugly, right? The famous theme that's him, right?
That's the famous theme is him. For what's it called? A Fistful of Dollars. All these movies. That's Morricone.
A little complete side jump from that topic is I actually have a CD of his music that I never knew existed sitting on my shelf.
Nice.
Apparently, he scored the Italian versions of my favorite 1970 science fiction show, Space 1999.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And he just released a soundtrack CD of his music for the series that I guess either appeared in the first season when it was shown in Italy, or when they edited episodes into these mini movies that they did after the show went off the air. They would chop up the episodes into making a feature-length film. So I'm not sure if it was from those or the episodes, but it's cool. Whole different style than the original series.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, I'd love to listen to that.
All right, let's see. We've got some folks here. We are like 15 minutes over. Folks have any last questions, comments for Chris? We got an outstanding. I assume that's
Thank you.
Bad Moon Rising. And let's see. Let's check over at YouTube. I think YouTube is here. No, here. Yeah. Okay. Hey. Good to see some more people over at the YouTube channel. Send me if folks watching this have a favorite platform. It seems like most people are on Facebook. Some people are on YouTube. But that's probably because there's not really a way to advertise on YouTube. But if you have a preferred platform you'd like to see this show broadcast on, I am working towards having multiple platforms for the broadcast. So, okay, that got a quick answer. Twitch. Hey, guess what? I have set up my Twitch account. I have not paid the money to Restream to add the third account just yet, but it's on my list of things to do this week. So next week, Frank Martin can be on Twitch. And since it's Frank that mentioned Twitch, I think that's probably a good thing for me to get on top of. Would folks like to see some more of Chris and I's collaboration, or what do you think? Are we time to wrap up, Chris?
Whatever. I'm good. I'm just sitting here. I enjoy it.
In the studio.
We can talk for a long time. I mean, you know that when we get into talking and philosophizing.
I wouldn't know what you're talking about. Anybody online know what he's talking about? Me? Do I talk much or philosophize much? Question back to Frank. Yes, it is. Restream is free up to 2 different services. So I can stream to Facebook and YouTube. That's free. And then after that, it starts being a monthly payment. But I don't think it's all that much. I think it's about like $15 a month to get like 30 platforms or 10, or probably more than I'm ever going to use. So I'll look into that. I know you're working on soundtrack stuff. And so I wanted to play a little bit. You have albums of your soundtracks coming out as well, because you're like me. You got 20 projects going on at the same time.
Kind of, yeah.
So I'd like to play a little bit of an instrumental track. We've been playing the cover tunes, and so here's a soundtrack item from Chris. So tell us a bit about that track.
It remind me it was Amy, because I didn't hear it here.
Oh, no. Oh, that's right. So for folks listening in, one of the tricky things about doing these broadcasts is you're actually seeing a delayed simulcast. So Chris is listening to me in real time, but then monitoring the simulcast 15 seconds later, something like that.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
so he's
quite a while, and I don't hear the music somehow.
Okay. Yeah, you would have to have your device that you're monitoring the live feed up, and then you'd create a feedback loop with your microphone. So,
and you don't want that in your live cast.
No, that's unpopular. So that was Cat and Chino.
Oh, Cat and Chino. So that's from a short movie that was released about 2 years ago, went into the film festival circuit, won several awards. It's about a female ex-soldier hunting poachers in Africa, hunting and actually killing poachers. It's a bit Tarantino style. It has quite some violence in, and but this one was I wrote for the more lighter scenes when Cat Dex, who's the main female character, and Chino, her medicine man friend in Africa. They are friends for since childhood, and they have this, I don't want to say love-hate relationship, but they have this banter going on, and she's always teasing him because he's a doctor as well, and of course, as he says in the movie, I'm not comfortable with the killing, and she always teases him about all that, and so that's why it's quite Tarantino style. And Dion van Rooyen, who wrote the script and the dialogues, he writes really awesome dialogue. very much in that style how Tarantino writes it. It's funny and witty and very original, like people talk in real life. It's not like it's a posh play. It's really very true to life, his dialogue.
Got it. And this is commercially available, or?
Not yet, no. They have a franchise set up for it. They're writing a feature film. They have a TV series that's in the works, and a computer game, I think, and a book. But so far, this it's kind of a proof of concept, that short film. They went through film festivals for over a year, and as I said, it won several awards, and they're just now shopping it and trying to get the TV show and the feature produced.
Got it. And another aspect of collaboration that Chris and I have with each other that I hadn't mentioned yet is Chris has a soundtrack library, and you might not know, but a lot of films and whatnot, you may have the main composer who does a theme and the bulk of the soundtrack, or they may just write the first episode of a TV show, like, say, the Twin Peaks first couple episodes, and then after that they pull from sound libraries of music that works. Usually the earlier episodes sometimes have bigger budgets, and they'll repurpose themes from those first sets of songs, but the composer doesn't necessarily score the entire series, and they rely on using sound libraries to find that music. So Chris has a sound library and has included the audio terrorist tracks, instrumental versions of audio terrorist tracks in his library. So we have Transmissions from Hell,
Which is a really cool album.
So if you want to listen to a soundtrack album of audio terrorist stuff versus just a pop rock album, but soundtracks, I've presented the material to Chris, and then he's crafted these soundtrack albums out of them. Dying Dreams, and I see Entertainment for the Day is an example of that. That was co-written with my buddy in Paris, Eric Wenger, and Tensor is actually an Eric Wenger track as well. So we got some other representation here. So that's the soundtrack. So if you're a budding filmmaker and would like some dark and moody electronic and hard rock, come no further than Counter Communications and Chris.
Yeah, we got that covered. and other stuff as well, but always just dark, because I always say I can't do happy music. So when we started that music library, and it started with my own music, it was a no-brainer to go that niche and say we have dark music only in all different genres, but if you need something dark, tense, creepy, melancholy, then you know where to go. And it's slowly growing, so we're getting a worldwide distribution soon for the library, and then hopefully you'll hear more of our music in TV and film.
Looking forward to it. And it's a matter of what is the title, the job title for the person that picks the music?
From the other side, you mean?
Yes.
From who we pitch to. That's usually quite often the music supervisor. Okay. But they can be quite different. Like a music supervisor on a big movie usually only picks songs that are placed in the movie, like from famous bands or not so famous bands, because there's always a composer who does the film score and the music. TV shows the same. If it's scripted, if it's stuff like Walking Dead or Breaking Bad, there's a composer, and then there are songs that get placed in there. But with reality shows, or we have 3 albums of true crime music, which is the typical light, tense stuff that you hear in these shows. There's a music supervisor who gets all the music from different libraries in, and then the editors cut the music to the scenes.
Got it. And so I might find I'm watching TV and there's a track and I recognize it. It could be yours, could be mine, because the music supervisor picked it up because they said, "Hey,
Right.
that works for me. That's what I'm looking for."
Exactly.
Cool. Well, we are coming up on an hour and a half, so I want to recognize that it is a holiday for some folks and go ahead and wrap up here. I want to thank you for taking your time out to talk about your work and our collaborations over the years and to be a
Sure.
part
Thank
of
you
this
for having me.
show.
It's always fun. As I said, we can talk for quite a while about all different topics.
I have it's funny, I'm using the keys to cover when I want to scratch my nose, but I'm not quite getting it all right yet. I'm working on that. Any chance I can see Rudy before we go?
She doesn't come up to that, but she's down here. Rudy.
Hey, Rudy.
Yeah, she doesn't want to look into the camera.
Okay. So we have a camera shy pup. Rudy is Chris and Miriam's dog. Lovely. She's a very sweet dog.
Most of the time.
Well, when I'm over, she's always been sweet. So
That's your good influence.
she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm perfect."
Yeah, that's probably your good influence there.
All right, so I'm playing with screens here. So you suddenly got overwritten by a thank you. So let me see if I can get back. It's interesting because Windows will allow me to do it sometimes, but not always. So again, thank you for being a part of this and
Thank you.
helping me launch the first full episode of this. Next week is Frank Martin, and let's see who's after that. And then after that, we're Whispers in the Dark episode with Ed Keller, because he will be in England. He's going to stay up late for the episode, and he says he has to whisper as not to wake up his family at 1 a.m. in the morning. So that's the next 2 episodes. Look forward to the schedule. I will invite folks to a unique event every week, because to do this streaming and restreaming thing, I have to come off my personal page, not my band page. And then Facebook has a policy that if you come up with your personal page, you can't create a series. Stuff that Chris and I deal with all the time. So you will be seeing separate events, at least for now. Maybe next month we will set up a series where you can just join and you'll be reminded each week to check it out. So again, Chris, thank you for joining. And,
Thank you for having me.
We'll be talking again soon.
We will.
Ciao.
Okay, bye.
I want to thank everybody who stayed overtime for this episode. And if you have suggestions, things that you heard, do let me know if there's any problem with the sound. Let me know if there's topics you'd like me to cover. If you'd like me to focus more on my Caleb tracks. Today was fairly audio terrorist centric. We can certainly do that and have an episode that focuses more on my rock country acoustic material. I think that's going to fit in episode 4 when I have Tim on and we talk about the acoustic project and how that's rolling. Again, thank you so much, and look forward to having you guys online next week. Ciao.